Thank you so much for taking up this task of presenting Switzerland. You guys, those hills, mountains, and the nice lakes. Yes, that's where she lives in Switzerland and her team. They have been working very hard. Jael, all the way from as well Zurich, and you have Lucy Oyubo from Basel, my neighbors. They're not very far away. I hope they'll find their way here so that you get to know them. They've been working very hard, bringing this platform, and they have a guest. And we have a guest, Paul, and Sheehe is coming here. Sheehe, and he's going to be coming here to be presented as well by the team, but that's not my work. My work is to introduce the Switzerland. Welcome, sir. Before they didn't have your bells.
Yeah, well, we don't have any bells, but it doesn't matter.
Okay, fine. I present the outfit here, and everybody else have your role to tell me what outfit is this, because actually someone who gave me this was in Switzerland, but now he's in US. So hand over to you.
Thank you, Jael. Thank you. Hi, everybody. Today is a beautiful day in Switzerland. We had rain in the morning, but now we have sunshine. And past all the technical issues, we are very happy to be with you. And I'm just going to present to you Paul Sheehe, who's going to tell us a little bit about retirement planning. The other two ladies, once they are around, they will tell us later about their part. But for now, let's start without wasting any more time. So here is Paul. Paul, welcome. So let Paul introduce himself and tell you what he's going to tell you today. Thank you, Paul. Welcome.
Thank you, everybody, for being live. And thank you as well for sparing this time. I'm going to be talking about retirement planning. This is basically only for Switzerland. And hopefully one or two of you are going to get some 2-3 inputs on how to set up their retirement planning. So first of all, what is retirement planning? I would suggest that we should definitely take time and ask ourselves this fundamental question, right? Because the Swiss system is basically based on 3-pillar system, right? And there's the first pillar, the second pillar, and the third pillar, which is not compulsory. So the two are mandatory. As long as I'm working and I have a certain income, I've reached a certain cap of income, I will then be registered in the second pillar. So what I would like to share with you guys today is basically how to calculate and come up with this number at the end of the day and know that is it going to be enough for me, or do I need to take extra measures on how to betten up my retirement savings. So my agenda has basically 4 points. You know, there's the individual excerpt of the first pillar, then there's the central point of the second column, and then we have the life insurance, and I'm also going to be discussing about taxes. And then there's that small part of Q&A. In case of any questions, I think it's much more better or advisable to just drop me an email. There's also going to be my phone number at the end of the presentation. Just feel free to get in touch. Yeah. So the most important question I always get from my clients is, how is my pension going to be? How am I going to calculate all these figures, and how much am I going to actually receive at the end of the day? Well, the most important thing is, first of all, you should know your numbers. You should know, and you should first of all know, when did I started working in this country? When did I started contributing in the second pillar? And have I done any personal savings in the third pillar as well? The other question, which is also very important, is definitely most of the time I get this question on, should I take my personal, should I take the lump sum or should I take the monthly payments? Well, it is so individual, right? Because every person has, different contributions done monthly. Everyone has different amount of money he's or she's earning monthly. So based on these factors, it doesn't necessarily mean that because I've saved all this time, I'm entitled to the lump sum. You know, you could get the lump sum, but at the end of the day, you're not capable of dealing with that money. There's also the tax factor also. if I take the monthly payments, or I decide to take the lump sum, there's some taxes which are going to be implemented. If I take the lump sum, there's going to be a wealth tax which is going to be implemented, and if I take the monthly payouts, I'm going to be having an income tax which is going to be implemented. Now, basically, most of the problem which comes in here is when I check the monthly payouts, I'll have to declare this money every year, right? If I check the lump sum, I'm going to be having a wealth tax, which is going to be implemented at that particular moment. Depending on which canton I'm living in, there are different tax tables which are going to be implemented, whereby you have to really calculate these numbers well, otherwise you're going to get a big surprise. That's why it is always advisable to really get the numbers clear. In this part, before going to that step, please take advice from a financial advisor. Well, there's also this question, how can I reduce my tax burden when I retire? The most important thing to know is, first of all, when you get retired, there's so many factors which you can no longer implement on your tax deductions. The bigger part will be, for instance, the work-related costs. So such things will definitely push up your taxed income. It is therefore advisable to really consider an advice from a financial planner, advisor, so that you don't get surprised. Because at the end of the day, it is not that when you get retired that you're going to get less taxes. Most of the times you even pay more taxes. Why? Because first of all, you have much more to declare. All those costs which you used to deduct can no longer be implemented. That is why you really have to get your numbers clear. There's several perspectives we have to put in consideration. Let me just go over. There's the life insurance part, and also the benefits out of the life insurance part. So most of the times I get these questions whereby, the client wants to know, okay, I have these policies, but I really don't know how much I'll be receiving on tax returns. But at the end of the day, it is also important to consider both sides, right? If I take the lump sum or if I take the monthly payments, what is the fundamental part in terms of now when you pass on, who's gonna be the beneficiary of all these policies, right? You have to be very clear on that. Otherwise, a lot of money is just going to be lost. And that is why you really have to get the numbers clear and organize your policies as well. So the life insurance perspective is also very important. I usually use this instrument, first of all, to save taxes and also to cover the family, or, I would say if I have important people in my life, I have to put them in consideration in terms of the benefits which could be then implemented in these life insurance policies. So for this being said, there are several types of, I'd say, benefits which can be covered with a life insurance policy, and also depending with the type of a person I am, this could also affect the premium I pay. This will mean if I'm a non-smoker, for instance, I will not pay a higher risk in the coverage. And if I smoke, therefore, there is a risk insurance which is going to be implemented, meaning that you have to pay more in that policy so that you're covered. Now, when something happens, most of the times we have this situation whereby, I would say maybe a relative passes on, or someone we know passes on, and we get these contributions and all that. But actually, if you organize yourself properly, this instrument can save all these costs and all these pains whereby we have to gather all these 2, 3 francs, 4, 5 francs together, 50 francs, whatsoever one can contribute. Definitely, this is an instrument whereby we can use to, to bring back the body back home, and at least, put your family in a situation whereby they don't have that financial struggle for at least 2 to 3 years until everything is settled up. Because when a death occurs, and if you are the main breadwinner in the family, that means that there's going to be a financial cut, and that is really painful. And I've seen that with several families, unfortunately. You don't want to be in that situation. You want to be in a situation whereby your children still are in that level of standard they're living in. First of all, they still, visit the same schools, Despite all that, there's another factor, the psychological factor. Now the parent is away, they have to do some costs, they have to optimize their living standards and all that. And you could actually cut all that or put that in a vessel which is going to definitely put your family in a better situation. Facts and figures, unfortunately, this session is so short on my side because there's so much to be told. First of all, the financing part, how can this be done? I could buy in life insurance whereby I could pay monthly. Depending on your financial situation, I can even pay once a year or twice a year. This is based on your financial muscle. There are two types of insurance policies. I could either use the 3A, which is then tax deductible, and the 3B gives you the financial benefits. I use this instrument to definitely save taxes in terms of wealth taxes, right? Whereby I will then implement this vehicle, I'll say a vehicle, to cut down your monthly savings, put it in a 3B, because while filing in your taxes, the 3B, then I'll just register the return value of this 3B, which gives you now a tax relief at that particular moment. And by paying out this policy by maturity, what you also have there is I'll say a special tax whereby you wouldn't have taxed this money at that high level, from the very beginning if you put this money just in an account. Well, how can I get this money? The 3A has some restrictions. There's some regulations with these 3As and the 3Bs. But I would say, depending with someone's situation, it is always advisable to see how much money do I need on the short term, how much money do I need on the long term, the middle term, and based on that one, we then, construct a consultation whereby the customer gets that, I would say, freedom in terms of financial planning, right? So you really know which port I can always access at what particular time. So the 3A and 3B have different aspects, right? If I'm working, it is advisable to start in a 3A. Why? Because I can get all these tax benefits from this policy. And then there's the 3B, whereby maybe you're married and then all of a sudden when, for instance, your wife gets pregnant, she could no longer go and work. So there's no need in paying in a 3A policy and you get no tax deductions at that particular moment. The reason as to I'm saying this is the highest maximum paid in a 3A is 568 per person. So if there are two people, this is 13,000, which I can definitely deduct in a year, But if the wife is not working based on maternity leave, there's no need of putting money in a 3A, there will be no tax deductions on that particular moment. That is why it is advisable to use both vehicles to optimize your taxes, first of all, but on the other end, also favor your lady at that particular moment. Not only the lady, you could even decide to maybe go for, a trip, for a longer time. There's no need in putting money in a 3A policy. Why? Because while you are away, there's no income generated at that particular moment, so you don't have to pay income tax. There's no need of paying in a 3A. That is why you could switch in a 3B. So the other thing which we always fear talking about is death, right? And death is something which we really have to openly speak about it, because that is that particular moment whereby you have to set all the possible background in terms of financial possibilities so that your family is not surprised, right? That is why, depending on the financial, I'd say, if you have like small kids at that particular moment, you really have to secure yourself in a certain moment whereby if it hits you now, they have to have the highest paid out amount as a lump sum. But as they grow older, there's no need of insuring yourself at so a high capital because the costs are now much more less. Why? Maybe when you see that your children are now 18 years of age and plus, there's no need of insuring them, maybe let's say at 1 million, because they now start, generating their own income, and based on that, they can also actually, they're not necessarily in that position to paying in a life insurance policy, for instance, will mean that you have to always, keep on paying in the premium. A higher insurance policy means that I have to make higher contributions. That is why specifically on the age of the children, or I'd say if you're in a business and you want to cover your partner so that in case of anything, there's no much debt left when something happens. When you have a mortgage running, all these things you have to really consider, get infos from your advisor so that you don't get surprised. Or at the end of the day, you don't want to lose that property, whereby you've worked for such a long time, and then all of a sudden, the property goes away and the bank sells it. So at the end of the day, the bank always wins, right? The other thing is, if you're starting a family, you should really consider yourself now to have those, to be having those, to have that responsibility of covering your family, because the small baby has no, I would say this, the smaller the baby, the higher the financial, I'd say the burden is much more higher than someone who is much more older. That is why you have to consider all these characteristics of your lifespan, right? Do the right thing at the right time. And the other thing is also, most of the time you get this question of whereby, when something happens to me, for instance, in terms of sickness or I'd say accident, well, my employer pays that. That's not necessarily the case. He will pay, but if you really go and check your pension scheme, you will be surprised. Mostly, there's like the 100% pensionable salary. Then there's the coordination deduction, which is approximately 24,500. From there on, that is your insured salary. So don't go into that thinking that I'm always covered. It's not the case, because even your employer wants to save money, and that is a part where they do that to save money, right? So get yourself prepared. Go into, go and check your pension scheme so that in case of anything, you're always informed on what could be the possible numbers which are given or covered on your pension scheme. The other thing which we really have to know is when something happens to you, who gets at least to inherit something, right? I always like to use the 3B vehicle. Why? Because I can then exactly say who benefits what and at a what particular grade, right? With the 3A, the government has its legal restrictions on this policy, and we can't do nothing about it, right? And it is really important, the one who carries the biggest burden should be actually better covered, so that, and it should be a vice versa thing, right? Because if something happens, let's say to the husband, right? Something happens to the husband, the lady is left with 2 kids, or something happens to the lady and the husband is left with 2 kids. Now the husband has to go and work, and there are 2 kids at home. Who takes care of the kids at home? And vice versa. The lady who takes care of the kids as well. So it is always important to make sure that both lives are covered, even the children's, right? Taxes. Okay. Taxes, the most important thing we have to know is regarding the taxes, when I then have to choose the lump sum or I choose the monthly payments, it is really important. If I get like 700,000 Swiss francs paid out in Canton Zurich, this will mean that I will have to pay a lot of wealth taxes on this money. That is why you really have to get the numbers right. You really have to get the advice so that you don't fall into this tax debt, right? Whereby, if something happens to me as well, if I take the monthly payouts, I should also happen. For instance, in terms of my beneficiaries, because I've worked for such a long time, depending with the company policy and the pension scheme policy, it is important really to get this right so that when something happens to you, you don't lose money. So here we go. I'll just take maybe 1, 2 questions. Whoever wants to do that, just feel free. But you have my address, my phone number, email. Just drop an email in terms of anything, guys. It was such a pleasure being online with you, and thank you very much for this.
Thank you so much, Paul. That was great. That is just a taste of what it is to be well prepared financially. I'm so happy that we had this opportunity to let Paul present and give us an idea on what we should do. So now that you know how to contact Paul, we move on to just giving 2 or 3 minutes to Jael to introduce herself and give us a taste of her life in Switzerland.
Hi, this is Jael from sunny Diani. I'm so sorry about the noise in the background. There are some children swimming, and I couldn't even shut them up if I tried. Oh my goodness. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be on this platform. Thank you so much to the organizers of this beautiful event. Even though we cannot be together this year, at least we can see each other on the screen. And I've been following the earlier programs. It's been amazing. And I'd like to share something personal about life in Europe. I've been in Europe for a total of 18 years now, 6 years in Switzerland. Before that, I was in the UK for 11 years. And I must say, the two experiences have been very different. In Switzerland, it's as if being a Black woman is almost normal. If I compared it to life in Britain, I felt as though in Britain, I was always reminded whenever I walked on the street or wherever I went to work, it's like there were always reminders that I was different. And I particularly experienced this whenever I went shopping. I would walk into a shop and innocently go browsing, and somehow, no matter which aisle I walked onto, somehow somebody would appear from nowhere and pretend that they were browsing as well and keenly watch what I was doing. And it took me a while to realize that this was happening. And when I finally did, because I'm not a confrontational person by nature, I just laughed it off. And I don't know if you people who are living in Europe experience the same thing. And it would be interesting to have a forum where we can talk about such experiences and either laugh or cry about them. Because at the end of the day, you make a choice. Do I cry about it or do I laugh about it? Because as particularly African people, I can talk about African people because
Looks like we lost Jael. Our time is really up, so we can't say much, but we can say thank you so much for giving us this opportunity, Jael.
we love life.
Oh, Jael, I thought I lost you.
I'm still here. Yeah, so Sister Jennifer talked about Caucasian cousins. And I'd like to borrow the same term. Our Caucasian cousins do not know what they're missing if they don't experience life with us. Because we are so full of fun. We love music. We love to dance. We laugh. We eat well, you know. I believe experiencing is so much better and so much more fun when we're it. And those who don't want to associate with us, they have no idea
That's
what
a
they're missing
wonderful
out
conclusion.
on.
Thank
And
you
that's
so
what I'd
much,
like to
Jael.
share today.
I will not go into my own story because we had technical issues, so our time has come up. But what I can say is that please. Oh, okay, you'd like to hear. All right. Yeah, we had a very helpful friend here. Come and wave. He helped us with all the IT. So you know that it's always good to have a friend, right? Welcome. You can join the African women in Europe.
Yeah.
Anyway.
my aunt
Yeah.
is a big fan of African knowledge,
Okay.
of people knowledge.
Okay.
Not on the founder part, but
Then we'll invite her, your auntie.
sure.
She's very welcome.
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, Joy, if you give me 5 minutes, I'll tell my story. My story is that I came to this wonderful country over 30 years ago, and I came to study, and I never planned to stay, but I did eventually stay. What I've noticed is that your positiveness can help you put yourself on the other side of those people who mistreat you or who show you like you're different. Yes, we are different, but we all have human rights and to be where we are. So my way of dealing with it was to educate myself, and I knew that education is one key that can open doors for you where they're closed. So I preach the same to everybody who can listen. Educate yourself, get yourself those degrees if that's what's gonna help you, so that people can actually appreciate you for what you know and not because of your skin. You know, your skin comes second after you are good and well placed. I cannot complain. I cannot complain about my life in Switzerland. It's been blessed. It's been wonderful, and I believe those people who try to treat me different is their problem, not mine. So that's the way I lead my life in Switzerland, and I continue to enjoy my time here. I would say the same to everybody, especially our young ones. It's frustrating, especially if you are not born in Europe and you come at your early age. You always wonder, what's wrong? People are looking at me different. I'm always asked questions which sound a bit discriminating. Do not get depressed. Do not put those as blocks to your life. Just get yourself educated is my way to go. Thank you, Joy. We lost Joy?
Fine.
Joy, that was my piece. And unfortunately, Lucy didn't join us.
Yes, unfortunately she did affect it, but you represented every one of it. And I'm happy to have the first man in the house presenting. How was that, guys? We need to see him and say yes. We all say, well, there's a successful woman, there is a man, but
there's a man.
it's always the other way around, but on our way is the other way too. If 2 men were there supporting our ladies.
And they are both my best buddies now because they're taking care of me. Introduce yourself, by the way, so that people know.
I also have 2 men here as well.
I know.
My name is Fakinja Nikolic. I'm Serbian guy, and I learn a lot of, let's say again, of my aunt, best woman, my mentor of my life, and she learned all people experience of African people. She fly a lot to Africa, and she stay and say people can have a school education experience, but the knowledge of people, Africans one is the best one. Because it's my experience, and so I'm happy that I have Paul of Good People Experience in Switzerland.
That's right.
Thank you.
We have to invite the auntie to the next hour event.
Yes, Definitely, definitely. And thank you,
Let's not forget
Peter.
that.
Thank you as well, Peter, for
And
taking up.
Paul can say something.
Sorry, Paul. I gave you names already.
Now, Paul, you can say something.
So thank you very much, Joy, for giving us this platform. And I think the best thing is we create a kind of a platform whereby we can share ideas first of all, but also get some value out of it. If we know someone is maybe strong in particular areas, we can get this help, right? And due to that, or based on that, we can then create a situation whereby we get a win-to-win situation out of it. Thank you very much for hosting this.
Thank you so much. I'm so delighted that you made it. It was even if the techno would even feel that we had a perfect planning here. Everything went as planned. So guys had a lot of breaks. So we've used your break a little bit, but everything is going on as planned. Thank you, Helen. Helen, you did amazing. Thank you, Jael. I think you dropped off as well. Thank you for organizing this. Thank you, Paul, for taking up that role. I can see a lot of people mentioning there. Well done. They've really shared brilliant advice. You got it from Maggie. Well done, Helen and team. Thanks, Helen and Paul. You can see all the comments there. And if you want to keep networking, you go to the networking, and then you get your 5 minutes to chat with new people. Maybe there was somebody want to get to know more about what we just shared about the Switzerland, and maybe they may need your help in one way or another one. Get them on the network. So thank you so much, Helen, and I wish you a good evening. And thank you to Switzerland, my neighboring country.
Thank you. Congratulations, Joy. Your team is doing very well.
Thank you. All of you, you cannot do it. Ubuntu. The whole thing here is about Ubuntu speed. That's the theme for this event. I am because we are. I cannot do all this without all of you there. That's why I'm so glad you took up the role. Let's do this together. Well done. Ubuntu is the way to go.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.